So here we are. Welcome everyone back to the Jaguar Wright Uncensored podcast. We might not be very regular, but when we do show up, we be right on time. You know, as I step into this whole content creating thing and podcasting world, something that I never really thought I was ever going to be a part of. I really didn't have that much interest in technology or social media, in all honesty. I was pretty much forced on to social media by supporters and friends. Weird thing about me is the second that I get involved in something, I have no choice but to immerse myself in it fully and see it for what it is. And that's what we're going to be doing. This podcast. 4 episodes, episode for episode of Sean Combs' The Reckoning. And we're going to be doing it, of course, with my uncensored nature. It's so funny. Uncensored. That's a word that definitely comes to mind when I look at this documentary. So let's not waste any time. Let's just get right into it. Episode 1, Pain versus Love. I thought that the title of this episode was really interesting. And let me just give acknowledgement to Alex, who directed this. She did a fantastic job. I cannot take anything away from her as a documentarian. I can't take anything away from the way she chose to direct this. Actually, it's the way she chose to direct this that lets me know that there's an agenda here. Like, off top. Pain versus love. Who do we see? We see a young Sean Combs getting started. We see Heavy D. We see I'll Be Sure. We see Andre Harrell. We hear them talking about all of the legends that came from money earning Mount Vernon, New York, right outside of the city. A real African American suburb. Like, for those of you who might have grew up in South Jersey, I guess you could kind of say like Willingboro, New Jersey would have been similar to that. Or for those who grew up in Philadelphia, Upper Darby or Lower Marion, would have been similar to that. Close enough to the city, but far enough away to be special, So Sean Combs has always grown up in an environment where even if privilege wasn't at his fingertips, it was within his reach. Now, we see them bring in his friend, Tim Dog Patterson. Tim Dog seems to be in awe of the documentaries about Diddy. Like, he seems to be the one character in his life that they find to humanize him. From before he came to glory, from before he clawed his way to the top. It's always Tim Dog. It's almost as if he didn't have any other friends. Nobody else that he went to school with, nobody else that he hung out with, nobody else that he spent time with. Just Tim Dog is the only representation. And I get it, Tim Dog lived in the house. Like he said, on several occasions, he and his mother lived on the first floor. So I guess that meant the Combs family was upstairs. This is a house where it doesn't sound like there were many men around. Tim spoke of having his father in his life, but I do not believe his father was in that home. Not with the kind of things that Tim has gone on to say were happening there. I can't see any man living there with his woman and his child and being okay with the kind of wild parties and stuff that Tim is alleged happened there while they were growing up. So, like even Tim, when he started talking about in episode 1, about 15, 16 minutes in, they start settling into the humanization tactics of it all. And he's sitting there talking about how he taught Sean to ride a bike, and he remembers letting go of his hand and seeing Sean riding the bike, and what a great moment that was for him as a big brother figure, I guess. And he said that they were both misfits. What made them misfits? I still don't understand. It's like the more Tim Dog talks about their childhood, the less he actually says. He really doesn't say much at all. He'll talk about certain things. He'll talk about certain offenses or abuses or this, that, and the other, which, by the way, Janice Combs is denying emphatically, and it's just lies. We can't believe a word you say. Like, it's just, I'm waiting for that commercial like they used to have in the 80s with the dogs that would pop out. Like, seriously, anytime you say anything about the Combs family, notice I said the clones, anyway, the Combs family, anytime you hear anything about them that anyone else says that's dealt with them, it's lies. And it kind of makes you wonder, how long are people going to buy it when they say this? Everyone's not lying about you. Everyone can't possibly have it wrong, and y'all are the only people that have it right all the time. It's weird. But anywho, I digress. Tim Dog, the only childhood friend, the only pre-Puffy person that they have, to speak for him, who gives him a somewhat human quality, but is always kind of lining it up for a pity party for Sean. Feel bad for Sean. Feel bad. Sean, it wasn't like this for Sean. Sean, it wasn't like that for Sean. I mean, from the second that he was born and being a small child, just the turmoil and the tragedy. His father being murdered and left for dead in a car. Somebody blew his brains out. Later on, people would find out that his father was an informant to the government. He was a snitch. So, this is somebody who worked with Frank Lucas. This is someone who has ties to like real black mafia shit, and this guy was an informant. Like, it's weird. Because I don't know. Usually snitches aren't revered and loved and admired. And yet, Sean Combs' father seemed to be able to hold on to somewhat of a decent reputation in some way. Makes you wonder, what was that really all about? But let me not get too far away from staying on track with everything that's happening here in episode 1. Pain versus love. People talked about his admiration for Heavy D, begging Heavy D for the introduction to Andre Harrell, the way he indebted himself to Andre Harrell, the way he was, the way he looked at, the success of I'll Be Sure. It's funny. Nobody seems to really acknowledge it for what it was. It was envy. It was jealousy. He saw what they had and he wanted it for himself. And he wanted to be bigger than everybody else. He was that guy that would sit there Almost like that movie, The Talented Mr. Ripley. He would sit there and he would study you and he would watch you and he would do all of these things just so he could become you and then get rid of you, disappear you, so nobody remembers who you are and all you remember is him. There's a lot of psychopathic, sociopathic behavior when it comes to the diddler, but hey, that's just my opinion. I'm no doctor. I ain't making no diagnosis. So let's just be clear. This is a young man who grew up with street-funded privilege. After his father passed away, it's very clear that his mother kept on hustling and kept hanging around hustlers. Tim Dog has described the parties in the house: pimps, hoes, hustlers, models, basketball players. You got that kind of crowd. There's got to be a drug dealer or so there. Alcohol everywhere. There was a stage built in the living room, and they were asked to perform as kids. I mean, like, this is how he grew up. It was almost if he was designed to throw the parties that we'll later hear about, from the white parties to the parties overseas, with very, 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 very interesting things happening there, all the way to the freak-offs. It's like Sean Combs was in a never-ending party his whole life. Now, from a boy being draped in chinchilla to a boy running around the streets promoting parties, interning for Andre Harrell before he got a paid position. I mean, his life was like a whirlwind. It was almost like he was in too much of a rush to grow up. I mean, even the way Andre Harrell said he bullied his way into his home, coming up with some story about a fight between him and Janice and how he couldn't live with his mom anymore. And the next thing you know, he's living with Andre. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you. In my opinion, I do not believe they were just roommates. I do not believe this was just a mentor-mentee relationship. In my opinion, from rumors that I've heard, from some things that might have been lost along the way, there was a much closer relationship between Andre and Puffy. The kind of close that most people want to sue for defamation of character over. Andre is deceased and not here to defend himself. And Diddy lies about everything. So let's just say allegedly. I believe that, him moving in there had multiple, purposes. Long and short of it, he was throwing parties at that house too. Apparently every time Andre Harrell would leave, Diddy had the house all to himself, like he was the king of the castle, and he threw parties there. I guess just like he remembered it being at mom's house. Music, liquor, people, hustlers, girls, dancing. That was where Joy Dickerson Neal got trapped up. Now, she wasn't awake for her assault, but it was described to her. Someone who had seen a videotape of her and what Puffy had done to her came to her and told her everything. She even shared a letter that her mother had wrote to the parents of Sean Combs. I guess she didn't know that his father had been dead for years. You got to see it for yourself. I'm not going to go verbatim on everything that Joy had to say. But after Cassie filed her lawsuit, she finally found the courage, after almost 30 years, to finally file hers. You know, it's wild because people want to sit here and pretend like this guy hasn't been hurting people. But that's why I said I think it's so interesting that they titled this first episode Pain versus Love. Kirk Burroughs goes into this very eloquent speech about, if you know pain more than you know love, you're going to show and dish out pain more than you will dish out love. And I get it. He had a crappy childhood. Plenty of people did. He also had a childhood of privilege. Any single mom that can afford to buy brand new Cadillacs and just drive around Harlem like she's a queen of the town, leaving the car running with children inside and no fear of anyone driving off. Like there's more going on here. Melvin Combs was a hardcore hustler, and apparently Janice Combs knew how to take his clout and harness it and use it to maintain a certain status in them streets. This is what he knew. But the music industry is what caught his eye. The glitz, the glamour of being famous and having everyone love you and adore you. Something else. Let's be clear. We all know how he rolls, or at least we've heard how he rolls. Most of the alleged victims that have come forward have all said that they've been drugged and they were abused while they were drugged. Joy's story is no different. And that goes all the way back to 1991. She helped him clean up Andre's house. He asked her to star in a music video because they lost a model. She really wasn't all that interested in doing so. But the party at Andre's was in New Jersey and she needed a ride back to Manhattan. She took that chance. And her life was never the same. It's funny, the video that she was in, Vanessa Sanquis, from The Soul, the whole song is talking to young brothers about how they treat their sisters badly and how they want to, wear this hardcore pimp attitude and exterior and treat the women with, no real respect, and how women had to stand up for themselves against their own brothers. And it's funny. That's the video that she was a stand-in for. And the person that brought her there, who was playing the pimp kind of guy in the video, is the very person that assaulted her. It's almost as if the art that he allowed himself to be entangled up in mirrored his actual real life. But that's the diddler. He seemed to never, leave the fantasy in his head. It's funny because even throughout the first episode, starting at the beginning all the way through the middle, while he's in the streets riding a bike and being a man amongst the people and pretending like everything is hunky-dory and everything is fine, and meanwhile on the other end sitting on the phone panicking with his legal team, talking about how he has to change his perception because he needs to make sure that the jury likes him, how they need to have control of the narrative, and sitting there taking selfies with people and just doing all of this stuff. He kept saying, you know, it's like my life is a movie, and I'm just I'm just setting the stage so people can see everything. This is a movie, and we got to provide the subtitles, meaning we got to tell people how to think about what they're seeing. It's really wild when you see the manipulative nature of all of this, and so heavily on display. Meanwhile, all of these hurt people that he's hurt throughout the years, and he's worried about what people think of him, not what he's done to any of them. And when I say them, I'm talking about all of his victims. Let's not forget, this was also during the era of that basketball, that charity basketball exhibition that he had at City College, where 9 people lost their lives. What's wild is all they can talk about is how this terrible incident made him famous. It seems like the more terrible things he did, the more famous he became. And he was exalted, even though people wanted Andre Harrell to distance himself away from all of this because of what he had done, because of the lives that it claimed. Oh, and let's be clear, they also claimed no responsibility, and they did everything that they could do to fight paying those families for anything. I mean, he's always been CYA, and when I say CYA, I mean cover your ass. Always been that. Andre wouldn't turn his back on him. Andre had become too reliant on him. Next thing you know, he had him running the A&R at Uptown Records, and then here comes shaping Jodeci, and that becoming everything that we know it to be, and him shaping Mary J. Blige, and that becoming everything that we know it to be. Christopher Williams, all of these things, like, he was there. And Andre made him the babysitter of the artist. Funny thing is he always wanted to be one too. He wanted it to be him. He wanted to be the talent. He wanted to be the special one. After a while, I think his ego just became too much for him and Andre to fit under the same roof anymore. Andre eventually fires him. It's weird. Who would have ever thought firing your intern, firing your assistant, firing your mentee, firing your employee would pretty much be your glass ceiling? Because that's pretty much what happened. Andre fired Puffy, and Puffy leveled up. And he leveled up with everything that he learned from Andre, with all of the influence that came with being close to Andre. I mean, for crying out loud, it was Andre who had the ear of Clive Davis. And then it became Diddy. Now, Andre did do him a solid. He let him leave with one asset to start over on his own. Biggie Smalls. A lot of people forgot that Biggie was on Uptown. But Andre really didn't have much interest in that. He didn't know what he was going to do with that. It really didn't fit into the brand or the look that he had worked so hard to create for Uptown Records. So that's what he had. And that was when he started Bad Boy. Now, this was also around the time where Tupac Shakur was doing his thing. Puffy wanted to work with Pac. Pop really wasn't interested in working with Puff, but he had a fondness for Biggie. He saw the potential. He saw where it could go. He wanted to help him. That just didn't work for Puff. Puff couldn't have control of everything. I guess he decided he was going to burn it all down. He hooked up with Craig Mack, took his street cred, started Bad Boy, and then ushered Biggie into hip-hop greatness. Meanwhile, Pac was already everything. Death Row was already everything. To listen to Kurt talk about how Puffy had him studying everything that Death Row was doing so that they could copy it for Bad Boy. Kurt got 25%. Mama got 75%. Puffy was the boss. Kurt did all the work. Puffy got to be Puffy. It's really weird. You know, during this time, he took on the role of father. Him and Misa Hilton. Justin was born. I remember the first time I went to that restaurant, Justin's. I never really was that fond of it. I didn't think that the cook was that good. I didn't think they had that great a menu. Truth is people only went there because it was them. You know, it was Puffy. It was his mom. That's where people from uptown went to. It was more about association than it was, you know, cuisine or any real restaurant. You know, It was where you went so you could meet these people. Man. When I look back and I think about all of this stuff, growing up during this time, remembering this time, reliving all of this, it's funny how much you almost forgot, and then you see a picture. I remember what it was like the first time we all heard that Tupac got shot at Quad Studios. The whispers were all over the streets. Man, Pac had so much turmoil going on already. When everybody found out he was still alive and okay, everyone took a deep breath in. A sigh of relief came out. But the one thing that I think troubled everybody was the fact that he left the hospital despite doctor's orders. He didn't feel safe. He didn't feel safe where he was in New York. And the rumors and the whispers were out on the street. From that one incident, it was enough to drive us all right into one of the most traumatic times in our pop history culture, our contemporary age, like hip-hop's great tragedy. It's funny what a picture can make you remember. But it's wild because they keep flashing back from then to him now, just cruising around Manhattan, cruising around Brooklyn, cruising around Harlem. Like he don't even remember all the damage he had done and all the pain he left behind. We're going to wrap it up here for episode 1, Jaguar Wright Uncensored Podcast, as we review Sean Combs' The Reckoning, the Netflix 4-part documentary series about the totality of all That is Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, the Diddler, whatever you want to call him. See y'all next episode. Part 2.